I used to think gratitude always helps, but lately I'm not so sure. Because on the surface, it actually sounds right, like you're handling things well, like you've got it together. But sometimes I think we say I'm grateful a little too quickly. Not because everything is okay, but because we don't want to sit with what isn't. And in that moment, it feels like you handled it well, but nothing actually got processed. And if that's happening, then maybe the question isn't whether gratitude is good, but when you're using it. And why. And maybe that's why this feels a little uncomfortable to notice, because on the surface, nothing about it really seems wrong. You've probably seen this before, or maybe you've been this person. Something goes wrong. Work doesn't turn out the way you expected. A conversation leaves you feeling off. Plans fall apart. And almost instinctively you say, "It's okay, I'm grateful." Not after sitting with it, not after really thinking it through, just immediately. At first, it feels like the right response, like you're handling things well, like you're staying positive. But if you slow that moment down, something is missing. There's no pause, no space for what actually just happened, just a quick shift into gratitude. And it leaves this quiet question behind. Did anything actually feel resolved, or did you just move past it too quickly? I've noticed myself doing this more than I expected. Saying I'm grateful is almost like a shortcut to avoid sitting with something that didn't feel right. And that's when this started to feel a little off to me. Because on the surface, nothing about it looks wrong. If anything, it actually looks like growth. You stay positive, you don't complain, you focus on what you have instead of what you don't. For a long time, I thought that was the goal. That if I could do that consistently, it meant I was handling things well. But the more I paid attention, the more something didn't quite add up. Because every time something felt off, there was this quiet pressure to move past it quickly, to reframe it, to soften it, to turn it into something grateful. And after a while, I started to notice something. I wasn't really processing anything. I was just getting better at skipping over it. So maybe the real question isn't whether gratitude is good or bad. Maybe it's this. In that moment, is it helping you face what you feel or helping you avoid it just a little more gracefully? And this is where the pattern becomes a little clearer, because what looks like gratitude on the surface can sometimes be something else underneath. Not acceptance, not peace, but avoidance. It usually happens in small moments, nothing dramatic, just something that doesn't sit right. A comment that lingers longer than it should, a situation that feels unfair, a quiet disappointment you don't fully admit. And almost automatically, your mind shifts. At least I have this. It could be worse. I should be grateful. And just like that, the feeling gets interrupted. Not processed, not understood, just replaced. I didn't realize how often I was doing this. It felt like emotional control at the time, like I was choosing a better perspective. But looking back, it wasn't control. It was a distance. Because the moment you rush to gratitude too quickly, you don't actually let yourself feel what's there. You skip the part where things didn't feel right. You skip the part where you ask why. And over time, those skipped moments don't disappear. They just sit there, quietly, waiting. And I think that's the part most people don't notice. Gratitude can feel like progress, when it's really just a very polite way of avoiding discomfort. And once you start noticing that pattern, it doesn't just show up internally. You begin to see it in how people express gratitude outwardly, too. Because not all gratitude is about feeling. Some of it is about being seen. It sounds right. It looks right. It even feels right for a moment. But underneath, there's a quiet shift happening. Gratitude becomes something you show, not something you actually experience. You say the right things. You react the right way. You present yourself as someone who's grounded, positive, and in control. And the strange part is, it works. People respect it. They admire it. I felt that pull myself, wanting to respond in a way that sounds mature, even if it wasn't fully honest. Because there's something about being grateful
that makes you look like you have things figured out. But the more you lean into that, the easier it becomes to lose track of what you actually feel. And at that point, gratitude isn't coming from clarity anymore. It's coming from the pressure to be the kind of person who always seems okay. And sometimes it goes even further than that, because gratitude doesn't always come from you. Sometimes it's expected. You hear it in subtle ways. You should be grateful. Look at everything you have. Other people have it worse. And in that moment, gratitude stops being a choice and starts feeling like an obligation. You're not expressing it. You're responding to pressure. And the effect is quiet but powerful. Because instead of asking, "Does this feel right to me?" you start asking, "Am I allowed to feel this way?" I've been in situations like that, where feeling upset almost felt inappropriate, like you had to justify your own emotions or downplay them just to seem reasonable. And over time, that changes something. You become more careful with what you feel, more hesitant to question things. Because gratitude, in that context, it is no longer about appreciation. It becomes a way to keep things the way they are, to avoid conflict, to stay agreeable. And slowly, without realizing it, you trade honesty for harmony.
And this is where it starts to get a little harder to notice. Because at this point, gratitude isn't just shaping how you feel, it starts to shape how you see things. Situations that don't feel right begin to feel acceptable. A relationship that drains you becomes something you stay in because at least they care. A job that slowly wears you down turns into something you tolerate because you should be grateful to have it. And the line between acceptance and avoidance gets harder to see. I've caught myself doing this in small ways, explaining things away instead of questioning them, telling myself it's not that bad, that I should just appreciate what I have. And for a while, that feels like peace. But it's a very quiet kind of compromise, because the more you use gratitude to make things feel okay, the less you ask whether they actually are. And that's the shift that's easy to miss. When gratitude starts replacing your sense of clarity, you don't just feel differently, you begin to see differently. And this is the part that took me a while to understand. Because at some point, it's easy to start blaming gratitude itself, to think maybe being grateful is the problem. But I don't think that's true. Gratitude on its own isn't the issue. It's not something you need less of. If anything, real gratitude is still one of the healthiest things you can feel. What changed for me was realizing this. Gratitude becomes a problem when it replaces something else, when it replaces honesty, when it replaces discomfort, when it replaces the part of you that says, something about this doesn't feel right. Because that part matters. That's where clarity comes from. That's where boundaries begin. And if gratitude shows up too early or too automatically, it can quietly cover that voice. So maybe the goal isn't to be more grateful. Maybe it's to be more aware of when gratitude is helping you grow and when it's just helping you move on a little too quickly. And maybe this is where things start to feel a little more balanced. Because the answer isn't to stop being grateful. It's not about becoming more negative or questioning everything all the time. It's something quieter than that. Letting both things exist at the same time. Gratitude and discomfort. Appreciation and honesty. Because real life is rarely just one or the other. I've been trying to do this more lately, not rushing to reframe things immediately, just sitting with the feeling for a moment longer. And what I noticed is the feeling doesn't overwhelm you the way you expect. It just becomes clearer. And strangely, when you do that, gratitude feels different too. Less forced, less automatic, more real. Because now, it's not covering anything up. It's sitting next to everything else that's true. So maybe the point isn't to be grateful all the time. Maybe it's to be honest first, and let gratitude come after that. Because when gratitude is real, it doesn't rush. It doesn't replace anything. It just sits there, quietly, next to whatever else you're feeling. And I think that's the part I had to learn. Being grateful doesn't mean ignoring what's wrong. It means not losing yourself while you're trying to stay positive. If this made you pause for a moment, you might see yourself in it more than you expected. And if you did,
I'd be curious to hear your experience.